Urgent, Lakers legend sends strong message to Luka Doncic. Nobody expected this, stay until the end to find out everything. But before starting the video, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any Lakers news. The entire landscape of the NBA shifted the moment Luka Doncic joined the Los Angeles Lakers. His arrival didn't just mean the addition of another superstar. It represented the start of a completely new era for one of the most historic franchises in basketball. While LeBron James, now at the age of 40, remains on the roster, the role of being the face and leader of the Lakers no longer belongs to him. That responsibility has officially passed to Luka. However, this is a challenge of a completely different magnitude. What Luka experienced in Dallas doesn't compare to what it means to wear purple and gold. In Los Angeles, the expectations are relentless. Being great isn't enough. Scoring titles, MVP seasons, or even deep playoff runs are simply steps along the way. None of it matters unless it ends with a championship parade down Figueroa Street. Back in Dallas, Luka was celebrated for elevating a franchise that wasn't built on championships. Guiding the Mavericks to 2 conference finals and an NBA Finals appearance was seen as a historic success for that organization. But Los Angeles plays by different rules. Here, the only standard is winning titles. The Lakers aren't just a team, they're a dynasty with a legacy built on 17 banners hanging from the rafters. It didn't take long for Lakers legends to make their expectations clear. During an appearance on national television, Magic Johnson, one of the most iconic figures in Lakers history, sent a very direct message to Luka. His words were sharp and without filters. He said Luka needed to understand that this wasn't Dallas anymore. Players like Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and LeBron James didn't just come to Los Angeles to play well. They came to deliver championships. Magic made it clear that no one should have to remind Luka to take care of his conditioning, his preparation, or his mindset. That should already be second nature when you carry the responsibility of being a superstar for the Lakers. For Luka, those words weren't just advice. They were a reminder of the pressure that now surrounds him every single day. The bright lights of Los Angeles don't turn off. Every interview, every game, every practice is under the microscope. The media is relentless. The fans are demanding. Every missed shot, every defensive mistake, every loss becomes national conversation. It didn't take long for Luka to respond, at least visually. Off-season photos started circulating online showing a visibly slimmer, more focused Doncic. He looked sharper, leaner, and more committed. Fans noticed. The media noticed. But deep down, everyone knew that getting in shape was just step one. What really matters comes when the games start to count. And even as Luka worked on his body and his mindset, the reality of the roster situation was clear. The Lakers still had holes. They lacked a true dominant center. They were missing elite perimeter defenders. The bench depth was questionable. The front office scrambled to make the right moves to build a contender around Luka. But the window in Los Angeles is always small. There's no patience when it comes to championships. In Dallas, Luka's brilliance was enough to make him a legend. Triple-doubles. 40-point games. Highlight passes. Fans loved him no matter the outcome. But in Los Angeles, the culture is different. Here, the numbers mean nothing if they don't lead to wins. Scoring 50 points in a loss isn't something to celebrate. Stats don't hang in the rafters, banners do. The weight of history is unavoidable. Every time Luka steps onto the court at Crypto.com Arena, he does so under the gaze of the legends whose jerseys hang above him. Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. Each of them wore the Lakers uniform with one purpose, to win championships. Nothing less. Now it's Luka's turn. The expectations are not coming, they're already here. The clock started ticking the moment his name was announced as the newest Laker. There's no grace period. No adjustment time. The media, the fans, the franchise, they expect greatness. And not eventually. They expect it now. The era of Luka Doncic in Los Angeles has officially begun. And in this city, there is only one way this story is allowed to end, with another championship banner hanging from the rafters. Luka Doncic quickly realized that life as a Laker was unlike anything he had ever experienced in his basketball career. The moment he stepped into Los Angeles, everything around him intensified. The media presence was overwhelming. Every move, every word, every facial expression became the subject of endless debates on sports networks and social media. The attention in Dallas had been big, but in LA, it was suffocating, constant, non-stop, and inescapable. But it wasn't just the outside noise that felt different. Inside the organization, there was an undeniable urgency. Coaches, executives, staff members, everyone carried the weight of expectation in their eyes. For a team like the Lakers, second place is just another way of saying failure. The front office had been clear from day one. Luca wasn't brought here just to compete, he was brought here to win it all. And that urgency translated directly to Luca himself. While the pictures of a slimmer, more focused Luca had already made their way around the internet, the reality behind those images was a summer of relentless work. He had pushed his body harder than ever before, transforming his conditioning in ways fans had never seen. Early morning weight sessions, hours of cardio, intense skill workouts. This wasn't just about getting ready for a season. This was about preparing for a war. Still, as prepared as Luca was physically, the challenges ahead weren't just about fitness. This was a mental battle as much as a physical one. The Lakers fan base doesn't just want effort. They demand execution. They expect leadership. And they expect a certain type of greatness that only comes with knowing how to deliver in the moments that matter most. And the pressure wasn't just from fans. Every legend who had ever worn the Lakers jersey seemed to weigh in. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar publicly stated that greatness with the Lakers wasn't measured in numbers but in jewelry, championship rings. Shaquille O'Neal chimed in during a podcast, reminding Luca that Los Angeles was a city that loves stars but only worships champions. Even Kobe Bryant's old highlights flooded social media as fans drew comparisons, asking whether Luca was ready to live up to that level of clutch greatness. Meanwhile, the Lakers front office scrambled to finalize the roster around him. There were trade talks, free agency rumors, and constant discussions about filling the critical gaps in the lineup. The lack of a true dominant big man was still a glaring issue. Opposing teams would exploit that weakness unless it was addressed. Defensive wings were another problem. Players who could guard the league's best scorers while allowing Luca to conserve energy for offense. Luca knew that the margin for error was razor thin. It wasn't enough to be brilliant on offense. He had to show growth as a leader on defense. He had to be the voice in the locker room when things got tough. He had to carry the weight of expectation while still delivering night after night against the best athletes on the planet. And with every passing day, the noise grew louder. Analysts debated whether Luca had the maturity to handle this kind of pressure. Some questioned whether his playing style, so ball-dominant, so heliocentric, would fit in a system like the Lakers, which historically thrived on star duos and balanced team play. Others argued that Luca's arrival was the beginning of something special, that his unique combination of skill and basketball IQ would eventually lead to greatness, no matter the pressure. Through it all, Luca stayed mostly silent publicly. No dramatic interviews, no bold predictions. His response was the same every day: show up, put in the work, and prepare for what was coming. But deep down, he knew that the real test wouldn't be in training camp or preseason. It wouldn't come in the first few weeks of the regular season. The real judgment would happen in the spring, under the brightest lights, when every possession mattered, and when legacies were either built or broken. The expectations from the Lakers organization were simple but brutal. Anything less than winning it all would be considered failure. Luca wasn't just playing to impress fans. He was playing to etch his name alongside the greatest to ever wear the jersey. The clock continued ticking. Every day was a countdown toward proving whether he was truly built for this. Los Angeles had seen plenty of stars come and go. But only a select few became legends. Only a few earned statues outside the arena. Only a few had their jerseys lifted to the rafters. Now it was Luca's turn to show whether he was destined to become one of them, or just another name who passed through the city of stars without delivering what mattered most. As the weeks rolled on and the season opener approached, the atmosphere around the Lakers grew heavier. Every practice felt like a statement. Every scrimmage was dissected like a playoff game. For Luka Doncic, the adjustment to life as the face of the Lakers was no longer theoretical. It was real, immediate, and unavoidable. The locker room dynamic also began to shift. LeBron James, now the elder statesman of the team, had taken a step back from being the primary leader on the court. He was still vocal, still present, but it was clear to everyone that the torch had been passed. LeBron's role had transitioned into that of a mentor, an advisor, and sometimes a silent observer of how Luca would handle the storm that was coming. Luca could feel it every day. The glances from teammates after a missed defensive rotation. The expectations in their eyes after a close loss in preseason. This wasn't just about his individual greatness anymore. It was about leading men, commanding respect, and being the anchor of a team with championship expectations. The media pressure had also reached a boiling point. Every major sports outlet had Luka's name running non-stop across their headlines. Analysts debated whether the Lakers had made the right decision in betting their future on him. Comparisons to Kobe Bryant became almost daily discussions. Was Luka prepared to have the same killer instinct? Did he possess the same relentless drive that defined Kobe's legendary career? Some former players voiced their doubts. They questioned whether Luka's style, often centered around high usage and ball dominance, could coexist with the Lakers' tradition of team-first basketball and dynamic superstar pairings. Others argued that Luka's playmaking genius and offensive mastery would be more than enough to redefine what winning basketball looked like in Los Angeles. Inside the organization, the front office continued working frantically. Trade rumors swirled constantly. Names floated around, star centers, defensive specialists, and versatile wings who could balance the roster. Luka, meanwhile, kept his focus on the court but was well aware that every decision off the court would directly impact his ability to win. He wasn't naive. He knew that no matter how brilliant he was individually, championships were never won alone. Even the greatest Lakers legends had elite support around them. Magic had Kareem. Kobe had Shaq, then Pau. LeBron had Anthony Davis during their 2020 title run. For Luka, the current roster still felt like a work in progress. Capable but incomplete. Despite the uncertainty, Luka made a conscious decision. Control what you can control. He buried himself in film sessions, studying not just opponents but the history of the Lakers itself. He analyzed how past legends carried this franchise. How they handled adversity. How they responded when the weight of the city threatened to crush them. His approach shifted. He wasn't just playing to be great, he was learning to become a leader. Practices became louder. Luka's voice began to echo during defensive drills, calling out rotations, demanding accountability. Younger players started looking to him, not just for brilliant passes or clutch shots but for guidance. And yet, beneath the surface, the pressure never faded. It loomed constantly, like a shadow that followed him everywhere. In interviews, in late-night text messages from reporters, in every interaction with fans, who alternated between unconditional love and relentless criticism. The city of Los Angeles had always been a paradox for athletes. It was a place of glamour, lights, and adoration, but it was also unforgiving. Stars were celebrated one night and torn apart the next. The same crowd that cheered could boo just as quickly if the results didn't come. Luka felt that duality creeping into his daily life. Simple trips to a restaurant became photo ops dissected online. A missed shot in a meaningless preseason game became a trending topic. A moment of frustration on the bench was turned into speculation about chemistry issues. But none of it compared to what awaited when the real games began. The regular season was no longer about getting into rhythm. For the Lakers, every game was a statement to the league. Every loss was treated like a crisis. Every win was expected. Anything less wasn't good enough. Luka had dreamed his whole life of being the face of a legendary franchise. But now that he was living it, the reality was far heavier than the dream. The weight of expectations wasn't something you felt once. It was constant, 24/7, inescapable. The season was just days away from tipping off, and one truth had become clear to Luka Doncic. This was no longer about proving he belonged in the NBA. He had done that years ago. This was about proving he was worthy of being a Laker. And in this city that meant one thing and one thing only, winning it all. The first game of the season arrived with all the weight of a championship final. The Crypto.com arena was a sea of gold and purple. packed with fans who carried decades of expectations on their shoulders. Banners hung above the court, silently reminding everyone of the franchise's glorious history. The atmosphere was electric, but heavy, as if the very building was waiting to see whether Luka Doncic was ready for the responsibility that now rested squarely on him. From the opening tip, it was clear that this wasn't just a regular game for the city of Los Angeles. Every dribble, every pass, every defensive lapse was followed by a mix of cheers, gasps, and groans. The fans weren't here to celebrate effort, they were here to witness results. Luka opened the game with a mix of nerves and fire. His first few possessions showed both sides of the challenge ahead. A silky step-back three electrified the crowd, but moments later, a defensive breakdown led to an easy basket for the opponent. The roar of the crowd turned instantly into frustrated murmurs. That's the reality of being a Laker. The highs are deafening, but the lows are just as loud. Throughout the first half, Luka battled not just the other team but the burden of expectation itself. His passes were crisp, his footwork flawless, but mistakes were magnified in ways he had never experienced in Dallas. A turnover didn't just cost a possession, it triggered an avalanche of social media reactions, live commentary criticism, and camera shots of disappointed fans. Despite the mounting pressure, Luka's greatness began to shine through as the game progressed. In the third quarter, he orchestrated a comeback, dishing out assists, hitting deep shots, and pulling down rebounds with an intensity that silenced the doubters, at least momentarily. But here's the harsh truth about being the star in Los Angeles. Moments of brilliance are never enough on their own. It's the endings that matter. Lakers fans have lived through magic moments. Buzzer beaters from Kobe, clutch dominance from Shaq, skyhooks from Kareem, and playoff heroics from LeBron. They don't remember great quarters. They remember who closed the game. As the fourth quarter ticked down, the game tightened. Luka faced double teams, relentless defenders, and the creeping fatigue that comes not just from physical exertion but from the mental weight of carrying an entire franchise. Every possession felt like a chapter in a legacy being written in real time. With under a minute left, the Lakers were down by 2. The crowd was standing, holding its collective breath. The ball found Luka at the top of the key. Isolation. The arena fell into a tense silence. He jab-stepped, pulled back, and launched a step-back three, his signature shot. The ball arced high, perfectly in line, but clanged off the back iron. The gasp from the crowd was immediate and universal. The opposing team secured the rebound, drew a foul, and iced the game at the free throw line. The Lakers fell short in their opener. The reactions were swift and brutal. Social media exploded. Headlines questioned whether Luka had the clutch gene. Sports talk shows debated for hours whether the Lakers had made a mistake handing the keys of the franchise to him. Some called for patience. Others were already whispering doubt. In the post-game press conference, Luka sat in front of the media, composed but clearly frustrated. His answers were short but thoughtful. "It's one game," he said. "We'll get better. I'll get better." But even as he spoke those words, he knew that in this city, those phrases only bought you so much time. Words meant little. Wins meant everything. Back in the locker room, LeBron pulled Luka aside. There was no lecture, no criticism, just a few words from someone who had lived this exact pressure for 2 decades. "It's not the misses they remember," LeBron said quietly. "It's what you do next." That sentence hung in Luka's mind as he drove home that night. The city outside was still buzzing. Fans on radio shows, sports anchors dissecting every play, even strangers on the street offering unsolicited opinions. Luka realized that the season was going to be a constant battle, not just against the other 29 teams, but against the weight of a legacy that demanded nothing less than greatness. 1 game down. 79 more to prove that he was more than just a superstar. He was now fighting to prove he was worthy of being called a Laker. The days that followed that opening night loss were filled with a tension that was impossible to ignore. Luka Doncic quickly discovered that in Los Angeles, the aftermath of a defeat wasn't something that faded quietly, it echoed. Sports radio blasted criticism from sunrise to sunset. Television panels analyzed his every decision frame by frame. Social media was a relentless wave of opinions, memes, and hot takes. But there was no time to sulk. The NBA schedule is merciless. Just 2 days later, the Lakers were back on the court, another sold-out crowd, another round of scrutiny. For Luca, the message from the first game was clear. Flashes of brilliance weren't enough. The city demanded consistency, resilience, and most importantly, wins. In the locker room before tip-off, the energy felt different. LeBron, usually the loudest voice in pre-game huddles, let Luca take the floor. The subtle gesture sent a clear message to everyone. This was Luca's team now. The eyes of the roster shifted toward him, waiting to hear what the new leader had to say. Luca didn't give a grand speech. Instead, his words were simple but direct. Let's lock in. No distractions. We take this one possession at a time. That night, the game was a showcase of the version of Luka Doncic that Lakers fans had dreamed of when the trade was made. He controlled the pace from the opening tip, balancing scoring with playmaking, keeping teammates involved, and showing a level of focus that silenced the doubters, for now. But perhaps most importantly, Luka responded on the defensive end, an area where critics had often pointed fingers. He fought through screens, closed out shooters, and barked out assignments. It wasn't perfect, but it was different. It was intentional. It was the behavior of someone who understood that being a Laker wasn't just about dazzling with offense. It was about doing the dirty work, too. The game came down to another close finish, but this time Luka delivered. With less than 30 seconds on the clock, tied score, he calmly ran a pick and roll, drew a double team, and dished a no-look pass to the corner for an open three. Splash. The arena erupted. On the next possession, he fought for a loose ball, forcing a turnover that sealed the victory. The crowd, so tense just moments earlier, exploded into celebration. Chants of Luka, Luka filled the arena. The narrative for at least one night shifted. The media headlines the next morning praised his resilience. Doncic bounces back, Lakers find their leader, one red. But even within the praise, the underlying message remained clear. This was just one game. This is what's expected in Los Angeles. As the season began to unfold, Luka faced a different kind of pressure. The marathon grind of proving himself not just once but every single night. There were games where he dazzled, putting up triple-doubles with ease. There were nights where his shot wasn't falling, but he found other ways to impact the game. And there were, inevitably, tough losses, each one followed by another round of media debates questioning whether the team and Luka himself were truly title-ready. But something else was starting to happen behind the scenes. Slowly but surely, Luka's leadership began to change the locker room culture. Younger players started showing up earlier to practice. Defensive effort improved. Communication on the floor tightened. The team was slowly transforming from a collection of talented individuals into something more. A unit, a squad with a shared mission. Of course, the front office wasn't idle. Trade talks continued. Rumors swirled about potential deals to bring in a defensive anchor or a secondary scorer to alleviate the pressure on Luka. The message from the Lakers executives was clear. They were going all in. Anything less than contending for a championship was unacceptable. Luka, for his part, stayed locked in. The whispers, the debates, the headlines, they became background noise. His days became a routine of relentless work. Morning film study, weight training, practice, recovery, repeat. The stakes were high, but for someone who had always dreamed of being on the biggest stage, this was exactly where he wanted to be. But deep down, Luka knew the truth. Regular season success was just the surface. In Los Angeles, banners aren't raised for regular season wins. They're raised for championships. The fans, the media, and the legacy of the Lakers demanded one thing above all: rings. And as the weeks rolled by, Luka felt the countdown ticking louder. The playoffs weren't just a goal, they were the judgment day that would define whether his arrival in purple and gold was the beginning of a new dynasty, or just another chapter in the long story of stars who couldn't carry the weight of the Lakers' legacy. As the season pushed forward, the challenges facing Luka Doncic and the Lakers became more complex. What had begun as a question of whether Luka could handle the spotlight now evolved into something deeper. Could he sustain the mental and physical demands of being the cornerstone of a franchise that measured success solely by championships? Game after game, the scrutiny never faded. Even on nights where Doncic put up historic numbers, 40 points, 12 assists, 10 rebounds, the reaction wasn't simple admiration. It was, but can he do this in the playoffs? That was the weight of wearing purple and gold. Nothing was ever enough until it came with a title. The team itself remained a work in progress. Injuries crept in. Role players went through cold streaks. The defensive issues that had plagued the Lakers in recent years continued to pop up at the worst moments. Luca often found himself in the familiar position of doing everything, initiating offense, leading in scoring, setting up teammates, and being asked to carry a defensive load he never had to in Dallas. It was exhausting both mentally and physically. Behind the scenes, the front office accelerated its efforts. Reports leaked that the Lakers were in talks with multiple teams, seeking a rim-protecting big man and a defensive wing. Luca was kept informed, but he stayed focused. He understood that while reinforcements might be coming, the responsibility to hold things together in the present was fully his. The whispers from Lakers legends didn't stop either. Magic Johnson, who had once publicly issued a challenge for Luka to embrace the responsibility of leading the Lakers, doubled down in interviews. "Greatness in LA isn't optional," Magic said on national television. "It's demanded. Luka has the talent. No question. But talent isn't the same as greatness in this city. Greatness means doing it every night, under pressure, with the world watching." Kobe Bryant's shadow lingered in every conversation. Fans regularly held up signs at games that read, "What would Kobe do?" The answer was always the same: win at all costs. Luka took those expectations personally. In quiet moments, walking through the training facility, staring up at the banners hanging from the rafters, he let it fuel him. He wasn't here just to be another star. He wanted his name next to theirs. That desire began to transform how he approached the game. His conditioning improved noticeably. Gone was the occasional frustration with referees or the lazy closeouts on defense that critics loved to point out. Luka was locked in like never before. He began to demand more from his teammates as well. Practices grew more intense. Mistakes weren't ignored. Standards were being set loudly. But with higher standards came friction. Veteran players who were comfortable with how things were suddenly found themselves being called out in film sessions. Younger players, once unsure of their roles, were now expected to meet higher expectations. Some thrived under the pressure. Others struggled. The media noticed the shift. Headlines shifted from questioning Luka's commitment to praising his evolution into a leader. But even with that praise, the underlying message remained constant. Leadership means nothing without results in the postseason. By mid-season, the Lakers were hovering near the top of the Western Conference standings. But it wasn't dominance, it was a grind. Each win was a battle. Each loss triggered another round of doubt from the ever-impatient Lakers fan base. There were highlights. A 50-point night against the Warriors silenced critics for a week. A game-winning assist against the Nuggets earned him standing ovations. But every step forward was followed by the same question: can he sustain this when the lights are brightest? Even Luka began to understand that, in Los Angeles, the regular season was merely a prelude. The real stage, the one that truly defined careers, was the playoffs. And that realization weighed heavy. In quieter moments, after late practices or while sitting in his house overlooking the city, Luka would replay those conversations with LeBron. The message was always the same: here, greatness isn't measured by numbers. It's measured by banners. The countdown continued. The playoffs were no longer just a distant goal. They were looming on the horizon, a storm approaching fast. And when it arrived, it wouldn't just test Luka's skill. It would test whether he was truly built for the weight of being a Laker. The final stretch of the regular season felt less like basketball and more like a pressure cooker. Every game now carried playoff implications. Every mistake was magnified, every success measured not by celebration, but by the simple question: is this enough? For Luka Doncic, the weight was unlike anything he had experienced in Dallas. The media circus was relentless. Former players, analysts, and fans filled the airwaves with debates about whether Luka was truly capable of carrying the Lakers back to the mountaintop. Some believed, others doubted. But no one was silent. The locker room, once filled with uncertainty about its identity, had now crystallized around a singular mission: win at all costs. The practices grew sharper, the film sessions more intense. Luca's presence in the building became a tone setter. If he arrived early, which he often did, others followed. If he stayed late, the gym didn't empty until he was done. LeBron continued to play his role, part mentor, part teammate, part observer. As his body aged and his minutes became more carefully managed, his influence shifted. He was now the sage voice in the locker room, the living reminder of what winning in Los Angeles looked like. But even with the growing cohesion, the cracks in the roster remained visible. The team still lacked a dominant rim protector. Perimeter defense improved but remained inconsistent. Rumors of a blockbuster mid-season trade hovered in the air like storm clouds. Would the front office pull the trigger to give Luka the help he needed? Or would the team ride the current roster into the fire of the playoffs? Luka never publicly weighed in on the speculation, but behind closed doors the conversations were real. He wanted help. Not because he couldn't shoulder the load, but because even legends needed the right pieces around them. Kobe had Shaq. Shaq had Kobe. LeBron had Anthony Davis in 2020. No championship was ever won alone. Then the moment came. With the trade deadline approaching, the Lakers made their move. In a dramatic, league-shaking transaction, they acquired a defensive-minded center and a versatile 3-and-D wing, two pieces the roster desperately needed. The message was loud and clear. The front office believed. The city believed. Now it was up to Luka to deliver. The impact was immediate. The Lakers' defense tightened. Offensive spacing improved. Suddenly, plays that had felt forced earlier in the season began flowing with precision. Luka thrived in the new setup, orchestrating the offense like a conductor leading an orchestra. His step-back threes became daggers. His no-look passes highlight reels. His rebounding relentless. But with the improvements came a new kind of pressure. The realization that now there were no more excuses. The roster was balanced. The stars were aligned. It was championship or bust. Fans began filling the arena with a new kind of energy, less anxious, more expectant. The chants of Luka grew louder, more confident. Murals of Luka in Lakers gold popped up across the city. Street vendors sold jerseys with his name next to legends like Magic, Kareem, Shaq, and Kobe. But for Luka, the external adoration mattered less than the internal drive. He spent his nights studying film, not just of opponents but of the legends who had come before him. He watched Kobe's footwork, Magic's court vision, Kareem's patience, LeBron's composure under pressure. He wasn't chasing their shadows. He was trying to learn from them, to understand the intangible qualities that transform talent into legacy. With the playoffs now weeks away, the Lakers climbed to a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. It was a remarkable turnaround from the rocky start, but Luka knew, everyone knew, that the regular season was only the prologue. Every conversation, every practice, every press conference carried the same undercurrent. The real season starts now. And it wasn't just about advancing a few rounds. This was about hanging banner number 18. As the regular season finale approached, Luka stood alone on the court after practice. The arena was empty. The lights dimmed. Only the banners above remained illuminated, casting long shadows onto the hardwood. He looked up, at the numbers, the names, the legacy, and whispered to himself almost like a vow. It's my turn now. The city was watching. The league was watching. The world was watching. And the playoffs were coming. The playoffs arrived like a tidal wave, intense, unforgiving, and all-consuming. For Luka Doncic, the moment of truth had finally come. Every step he had taken since arriving in Los Angeles, the scrutiny, the workouts, the pressure, it all led to this crucible where legends are made or broken. The opening round matchup was fierce. The opposing team was experienced, hungry, and ready to exploit any weakness. The media buzzed with predictions, some optimistic, others skeptical. Could Luka really carry the Lakers through the gauntlet? From game one it was clear this was a different stage altogether. The intensity of the crowd was deafening. Every possession was fought with relentless physicality. The pace was faster, the defenses tighter, the margin for error razor thin. Luka faced the fire head-on. He exploded with triple-doubles, deep threes, and clutch drives to the basket. But he also faced challenges, missed shots, tough defensive matchups, and moments where the pressure threatened to overwhelm. The spotlight that had once seemed so bright now burned with fierce heat. Yet, through it all, Luka showed growth beyond statistics. He communicated more on defense, rallied teammates when energy flagged, and took the blame publicly when things went wrong. The hallmarks of a true leader were emerging. As the series tightened, every game became a chess match. Coaches adjusted, players battled through injuries, and fans experienced roller coaster emotions. In one pivotal game, Luka hit a game-winning shot at the buzzer, a moment that instantly silenced critics and ignited belief. That shot wasn't just points on the board, it was a statement. Luka Doncic was here to stay, not just as a star but as a champion in the making. But the road was far from over. The Western Conference semifinals awaited, a gauntlet of elite teams, each with their own legacy and hunger. The margin for error shrank even further. Throughout the playoffs, Luka continued to elevate his game. His step-back jumper became nearly unstoppable. His court vision unlocked defenses. His leadership galvanized the team. The Lakers rediscovered the resilience and toughness that had defined their championship past. LeBron, now in a more supportive role, watched with pride as his protege grew into his own. In quiet moments, he reminded Luka that the journey was as important as the destination, that pressure and expectation were part of the price for greatness. In the final moments of a hard-fought conference final, with the Lakers trailing by 1 and seconds remaining, Luka dribbled at the top of the key. The arena held its breath. Defender closing fast. Luka stepped back and launched a high-arching three. Swish. The crowd erupted into a frenzy. Teammates swarmed him. The Lakers were going to the finals. The city of Los Angeles roared its approval. Banners waved. Fans cheered. The legacy that once seemed so daunting was now within reach. Luka Doncic had not only accepted the pressure, he had thrived under it. He had become the leader the Lakers desperately needed. The new face of a franchise with a championship thirst that would never be quenched. But this was just the beginning. The finals loomed ahead, a chance to seal his legacy forever. And Luka was ready.